Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to Crime Zone. Authorities in Nassau County, New York say that a simple misunderstanding over a taco order ended in a man's arrest this week after he allegedly made a threatening gesture towards an employee at the business. The whole thing reportedly started when the 21-year-old victim received a phone order shortly before 9 p.m. on August 23rd while working the counter at Tony's Tacos in Franklin Square. After picking up, the woman attempted to take down the male caller's order. However, he had a bad connection. She was having difficulty understanding him because every few seconds his voice was cutting out. Apparently upset by this, the man, later identified as 62-year-old Kevin Warren, stormed into the business a short time later. When he did, he immediately confronted the woman he had been speaking with. During that exchange, which was partially captured on surveillance video, Warren can be seen grabbing the 21-year-old's arm and pulling it. He also lifts up his shirt, revealing something on his waistband. The woman says he was flashing his gun at her. The man eventually ran off, but still the whole thing understandably left the 21-year-old shaken up. However, it appears that she and her fellow employees are just happy that things didn't escalate further. Warren was arrested 3 days later and has now been charged with menacing. Authorities in Portage County, Indiana say that they recently had to respond to the scene of a rather unique food fight after a 28-year-old Chicago woman allegedly attempted to shamelessly exploit an all-you-can-eat special at a popular nationwide restaurant chain. The whole thing started on the evening of August 2nd when police were called about a disturbance at an Applebee's restaurant in the city of Portage. Dispatchers informed them that they had received reports that a party of diners at the restaurant were screaming and making threats due to a dispute over the conditions of a menu special there. That dispute was with Applebee's $15.99 limited-time all-you-can-eat special. Apparently, a woman, later identified as 28-year-old Shanisha Cobbs, had come in with two other adults and several juveniles. They proceeded to order a single one of the specials, which they allegedly used to feed the entire table. When staff noticed this and the manager informed Cobbs that she and her party were being charged for an additional meal, she promptly freaked out. When police arrived at the scene and attempted to get to the bottom of what was going on, Cobbs and her group argued that the Applebee's menu never specified that they couldn't all eat off of one order. Of course, this was not true, and officers were quickly given a menu that clearly stated that the $15.99 price was per person. Personally, I have a hard time believing anyone was genuinely confused by this. I mean, it's all you can eat after all, not all y'all can eat. When Cobbs was informed of this, though, she did not take it well. She allegedly continued to yell and scream, picked a fight with another random pair of diners, and despite repeated warnings from police and attempts by her friend to calm her down, would not listen. Eventually, she was taken into custody for disorderly conduct. According to reports, Cobbs' shameless attempt to get a cheap meal could now cost her a lot more than an extra charge on her bill. She's looking at up to 180 days in jail, plus a $1,000 fine. Authorities in Athens, Tennessee released a disturbing update in a devastating arson case this week, announcing that not only has a suspect been arrested and charged, but that he is now accused of murdering a woman who was initially thought to have died in the fire. The situation began on August 15th, when emergency responders were called to the scene of a fire at the St. Mark AME Zion Church on North Jackson Street. Firefighters arrived to find the building engulfed in flames. Unfortunately, by the time the blaze was extinguished, the church had been almost completely destroyed. That wasn't all, though. Tragically, a body was soon pulled from the charred remnants of the building. The remains were later identified as those of church secretary Linda Buchanan. As police began investigating, the situation became even darker. They reportedly found evidence suggesting that not only had the church been deliberately burned, but that Linda had been killed before it was set on fire. Surveillance video apparently pointed police in the direction of a suspect. That video shows a man, later identified as Kyle J. Hickox, in the area both before and after the alleged arson. Specifically, Hickox can reportedly be seen running across the property of the nearby Athens YMCA before heading onto the campus of Tennessee Wesleyan University. It was here, inside of a maintenance building, that he apparently had a bizarre encounter with an employee. While the worker was telling Hickox he needed to leave, Hickox reportedly responded that he, quote, would get God's water. When he finally left, the worker watched as Hickox ran towards the church and entered through the back door. Additional surveillance footage allegedly shows him cutting across the YMCA property again about 10 minutes later before heading toward the Wesleyan University soccer field. By this point, he had removed his shirt and wrapped it around one of his hands and was reportedly captured using a hose to spray off his body. 2 days later, police executed a search warrant at Hickox's residence where they were able to obtain some of his clothing. Among these items was a pair of shoes, one of which allegedly had blood on it and was found to be a match to Linda Buchanan. On August 23rd, Hickox was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. Police say that additional charges are pending, though so far have not said anything about a potential motive behind the crimes. Authorities in San Bernardino County, California say that a man is facing murder charges this week after he was accused of killing his elderly neighbors who disappeared several days ago from the nudist resort where they all lived. The whole thing began sometime on August 25th when police in the city of Redlands received a call from a concerned resident at the Olive Dell Ranch family nudist resort. The caller explained that they were worried about their friends, elderly couple Daniel and Stephanie Menard. The friends stated that they had not seen the 79 and 73-year-old husband and wife since the previous morning, and that no one could get a hold of them either. When officers went out to investigate, they found the couple's unlocked vehicle parked down the road from their home. Stephanie Menard's purse and cane were inside their residence, along with her and Daniel's cell phones. However, there was no sign of them or their small dog Cuddles anywhere. After launching an investigation, authorities learned that a neighbor of the missing couple, 62-year-old Michael Sparks, might be involved in the disappearance. Police tried to locate Sparks and were unsuccessful at first, until on August 29th they discovered that Sparks was hiding underneath his property in a homemade concrete bunker. During an hours-long standoff, police negotiated with Sparks, and a tactical vehicle was sent into his residence. Finally, Sparks agreed to surrender and was taken into custody. The following day, police announced that human remains had been recovered from inside the concrete bunker. So far, it appears that formal identifications have not been made, and that further exploration has been stalled due to fears that the structure might collapse. Still, Sparks has now been charged with Daniel and Stephanie's murders. As for a motive behind the killings, nothing has been confirmed at the time of this recording, though other residents in the area told reporters during interviews that Sparks hated Daniel and Stephanie. According to one neighbor, this hatred was the result of a petty dispute over a tree on their shared property line, which had angered Sparks and which he was unable to let go. Currently, Sparks remains in custody, and the situation is still under investigation. Representatives from the U.S. Marshals Service say that a wanted fugitive almost quite literally fell into their laps this week after they went to search a property for him and he chose a rather unfortunate hiding place. The case began sometime back on April 2nd of 2024, when Memphis police were called about a disturbance at the Cavalier Court Apartments on Perez Avenue. Officers had just arrived in the area and were checking the situation out when suddenly they heard gunshots coming from nearby. They followed the source of the noises, where they found a man named Troy Cunningham. Troy was lying on the ground and had been fatally shot in the back of the head. Stray gunfire also struck a vehicle with 2 women in it, causing one to suffer a gunshot wound to her shoulder. Following an investigation, police were able to identify 3 suspects in connection with the crime. They were later identified as Jarius Hibbler, Tamarius Barron, and Diario Wilkerson. Hibbler and Barron were quickly tracked down and arrested. However, Wilkerson proved more difficult to locate. By the time a warrant was put out for first-degree murder charges against him on May 9th, the 20-year-old was nowhere to be found. The U.S. Marshals were brought in to assist with capturing Wilkerson, and over the next couple of months continued to follow leads concerning his whereabouts. The trail ultimately led to a residence where one of the 20-year-old's family members lived that ended up being not very far from the crime scene. Authorities obtained a search warrant for the property, which was executed on August 26th. They were prepared to carry out a thorough search of the place. However, that turned out not to be necessary. Shortly after they began looking around, Wilkerson, who had been hiding in the attic, came crashing through the drywall of the ceiling, Christmas Vacation style. Reports don't mention if he was wistfully watching old home movies up there on a reel-to-reel film projector, but what we do know is that, much like Clark Griswold, Wilkerson wasn't injured from the comedic fall. Following the incident, he was immediately taken to jail. According to reports, in addition to his original first-degree murder charge, the 20-year-old is now facing several others, including reckless endangerment, tampering with evidence, reckless driving, vehicle burglary, gun theft, and evading arrest. Authorities in Pinellas County, Florida, say that a man is facing charges this week in connection with quite the bizarre case after a dispute between two doctors over a medical practice allegedly escalated to one of them soaking the place twice in a foul-smelling liquid. The whole thing apparently started near the end of 2022 when the suspect, 59-year-old internist Dr. Giovanni Baula, sold his St. Petersburg medical practice to another man, 32-year-old Dr. Dylan Dinesh. At first, it seemed like an ordinary transaction. However, at some point, things went off the rails. Reports don't mention what caused the relationship between the two men to sour. All we know is what Baula is accused of doing next. According to an arrest affidavit released this week, Dr. Baula is accused of going to Dinesh's business, Affiliated Health Clinics, on two separate occasions. Both times, he allegedly covered the doors to the offices in gallons of a mysterious liquid that apparently left behind an all-too-familiar stench. Piss. Yeah, police are pretty sure it was piss. The first incident reportedly happened on July 30th, while the second took place just earlier this month on August 17th. Both times, Baula and his vehicle were recorded by the clinic's surveillance cameras. The affidavit goes on to say that because the doors to the building were made of wood, the odor of the urine-smelling liquid completely soaked in and was impossible to get rid of, to the point that Dinesh apparently had to replace them. He alleges that this will cost $1,500 and that his practice suffered an additional $6,000 in other associated losses from the pee-related vandalism. Baula was arrested on August 27th and has been charged with one felony count of criminal mischief. He was released from custody after posting a $5,000 cash bond. Representatives from both the Maine and New Hampshire State Police say that 3 people are dead this week after a man fatally shot his wife and young son before being killed himself during a standoff with police. The incident began just after 2 a.m. on the morning of August 29th, when police in York County, Maine received a call from 37-year-old Trent Weston. Weston reportedly told authorities that he had gotten in a fight with his wife, 37-year-old Brittany Weston, back at their home in the town of Troy, New Hampshire. Weston said that things had gotten violent and that she was dead. When emergency responders headed over to the property, located on the 300 block of Monadnock Street, they found Brittany dead inside. An autopsy has since determined her cause of death was multiple gunshot wounds to the head. As this was happening, officers from both the Maine State Police and the New Hampshire State Police managed to track Trent Weston to the Piscataqua River Bridge, which connects the city of Portsmouth, New Hampshire, to the town of Kittery, Maine. Weston was parked in one of the southbound lanes of the bridge when officers arrived and closed the area down. Police reportedly attempted to negotiate with Weston for multiple hours, though this was ultimately unsuccessful. Things escalated when the 37-year-old got out of his car with a gun in his hand and allegedly raised it towards some of the officers. They responded by firing, causing Weston to fall from the bridge after he was hit several times. He was pronounced dead a short time later after being pulled from the water. Tragically, Weston's 8-year-old son, Benson Weston, was found dead inside of the vehicle they had been traveling in on the bridge. He also died from multiple gunshot wounds, though investigators say that he was killed before their shootout with the 37-year-old father. At the time of this recording, no information has been revealed about a motive behind the awful tragedy. Neighbors who spoke to the media said that they had only moved to the Troy residence where the deadly situation began about a month and a half ago. The situation is still under investigation. Authorities in Virginia have released disturbing new details in the case of a missing woman this week, announcing that they are continuing their search, but that they now believe she is dead and that her husband is responsible for her murder. According to reports, 28-year-old Mamta Kafle-Bat was last seen on July 27th after finishing her shift for the day at UVA Prince William Medical Center, where she worked as a pediatric nurse. After that, friends and family members were unable to get in contact with her, something that was especially concerning because Mamta had a 1-year-old daughter at home. After calling Manassas Park Police, friends and family members asked them to conduct a welfare check. This check was carried out on August 2nd, at which time officers spoke with her husband, 37-year-old Naresh Bhatt. Naresh claimed that Mamta had not been around for the last couple of days, but stated that he did not want to report her missing. He said that they were having marital problems and that his wife was probably just visiting family members out of state. 3 days later, Naresh finally did report Mamta missing, though apparently she still did not meet the Virginia State Police criteria for a missing person. That didn't change for at least another couple of days until detectives learned, quote, that there was a significant lack of recent contact by Mamta with her family, friends, employer, and on social media postings between August 5th and August 8th. On August 21st, a search warrant was executed at Mamta and Naresh's Manassas Park home, during which a number of unsettling clues were found. Specifically, police say that testing revealed the presence of a large amount of blood that had been cleaned up in both the master bedroom and master bathroom. That blood evidence was allegedly consistent with someone being attacked in the bedroom and then dragged into the shower. On top of this, authorities say that they learned that between July 30th and 31st, Naresh bought a number of suspicious items. These included 3 knives, only one of which has been found, along with a number of cleaning supplies. An empty bottle of carpet cleaner was found during the subsequent search of the Bhatt's home. Investigators have said that they now believe Naresh killed Mamta and disposed of her remains. To support this, they have pointed to financial and marital problems that they say the couple were having in the months leading up to Mamta's disappearance. According to police, Naresh was having trouble paying bills and had recently sold his Tesla. He also allegedly packed suitcases around the time of the disappearance and told friends he was thinking about selling his home. Friends of Mamta's say that they believe she was the victim of domestic abuse. They claim they had seen her with bruises multiple times in the months leading up to her disappearance. This appears to be supported by a police report from February of this year, which states that officers were called to the Bhatt's home for disorderly conduct. During that visit, Mamta reportedly told police that her husband, quote, would not give her her documents and destroyed her phone. Finally, investigators have presented Google searches allegedly made by Naresh also in the months before Mamta went missing. One of those searches reads, quote, how long does take to marry after spouse dies? While another reads, quote, what happened debt after spouse dies? Authorities now say that due to the amount of blood evidence recovered at the home, they believe that Mamta suffered injuries that are, quote, not survivable. Naresh has been arrested, but so far he has only been charged with concealment of a dead body. However, that could change as the investigation continues. At the time of this recording, the search effort is ongoing, and Naresh remains in custody after being denied bond. He and Mamta's 1-year-old daughter is now in the custody of Mamta's family members. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a second to give a huge shout out to everyone who has made it this far into the video. Seriously, thank you so much for watching. If you found today's upload interesting and informative, we'd be honored if you'd consider liking and subscribing, as well as hitting the notification bell and selecting all notifications to stay up to date with our latest releases. If you're looking for additional ways to help support the channel, we'd love to have you join us over on Patreon. Patrons get ad-free and early access to all of our content, as well as 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. You can learn more at patreon.com/crimezone, where you'll also find some of the fine folks whose names are currently on screen. All that being said, we understand that not everyone has the means to support financially, and that's totally okay. We appreciate every like, sub, share, and comment that you send our way. Once again, thanks so much everyone, and take care.